No one has been arrested. And a Quincy man has now admitted in court today to firing a gun that injured two people last fall. 21-year-old Diary Snaff II pleaded guilty to the reckless discharge of a firearm. WGEM's Haley Adams joins us now with what happens next. Haley?
Thanks, Daniel. Naff appeared attentive and composed as he sat beside his attorney during this morning's hearing. The guilty plea resolves a case dating back to September 29th. That's when police say Naff fired a gun on Lynn Street between 7th and 8th, hitting two people. Prosecutors dropped two other charges as part of the plea agreement. The felony conviction carries at least a year behind bars and 4 years of probation. A judge will hand down Naff's sentence on March 30th. Daniel?
All right, thanks, Haley. A former Quincy man accused of murdering his wife has now been ordered to have an evaluation.